I'm Andy Schmuckler. I think I'm in a good position to testify about uh, some generality about the attitude of liberals toward fighting. I'm a guy who spent a whole number of years um, trying to get liberals to, my phrase was, press the battle. In fact, if you go on my website, abetterhumanstory.org, you'll find um, a whole array of coherent case that I put out under the theme "Press the Battle." Uh, so I was pushing in that direction well before that. Press the Battle was in 2014, but I've been basically putting out a version of that message since 2004. I had been a guy in the 90s who was a builder of bridges across the divide. But then I witnessed that something had changed and it became necessary to reach for a different tool in one's toolbox. And liberals who liked having me come and talk to them about building bridges with conservatives um, were resistant to the idea of doing battle. And as they expressed that, one could pick up about attitudes that they had about fighting. I would say that it was fairly well entrenched in at least a lot of people in liberal that there's something wrong with fighting, that not just regrettable that that might become necessary, but not something to be embraced as this is what we are called to do. There's something not nice about fighting. We're supposed to be nice to each other. Liberals are good at the possibility of building bridges across among people who might otherwise be embattled against each other. But that attitude disables one. You could see in American politics how repeatedly liberals would shrink from the confrontation. Things on the other side would sort of call for a confrontation. Um, there would be some kind of an attack on something that liberals were in a position where we depended upon them to protect that thing under attack, and they would shrink from the battle. And I wrote about this endlessly well, certainly when Obama was president. There's a reluctance to fight, and I believe that an important part of that is a fear, not just a fear of losing, but a fear of the fight itself. Maybe it's got to do with losing. Also, it's got to do with not having cultivated within oneself an image one held in positive regard of oneself as a warrior. If you don't have a role that you are ready to play of a heroic nature, when Franklin Roosevelt summons the nation to battle, a day of infamy, that's a liberal who has a readiness to fight. And he had shown that in other ways too. He was the one who said, I welcome their hatred about the malefactors of great wealth. You don't hear people in liberal America doing that now. The question might arise, well, why would there have been a change in that respect if it isn't inherent to liberalism to not have the fight in one and there's a lot of people on the left that've got the fight in them. You know, an organizer like Saul Alinsky. Um, there are passionate fighters that have been on the left, but if you look at the Democrats and liberal America as an overall group, there wasn't much sense of let's take them on hand to hand, toe to toe, even as fascism was becoming increasingly visible. And that's why the question of why are liberals not better fighters is an important one. I think there is a fear factor. I'm watching Patton, the great movie from 1969 or 70, Nixon's favorite movie. Um, and there's no fear in that guy. And there is a calling, uh, a yearning to do battle. I mean, he's an extreme form of something that's just the opposite of what liberalism has been about. Liberal has been, more like the soldier uh, that he slaps. I don't want to overdo that, but there is a sort of a compared to the conservatives. Liberals, for all their other virtues, do tend to be a little limp-wristed, like they've been accused of being. That's how I see it. I actually do see it. I mean, we've had some wonderful people be president, for example, like Barack Obama and Joe Biden, but neither one of them was a fighter. And both of them would have done better for the country if they had fought. There's a dimension of this that also has to do with the polarization of America. A patent figure sort of tells you something about, Trump's side of things. They're, they insist on there being conflict. You know, fighting is the only mode they have about how to deal with the people on the other side of the boundary. That's a sickness. But in the polarized society where you sort of get, polarized meaning like in the old days when there was a picture of a negative that could be developed into a positive. The dark spots in the one are the bright spots in the other, and vice versa. Um, that's the negative. And so it is that conservative America insists on fights, and liberal America has too much shrunk from them. So again, conjures up how this polarization makes the rise of fascism a problem of the whole system, not just the part that was infected on the conservative side, but also the side that failed to detect the disease and combat it on the immunity side, which is the Democrats who had to protect us. We're paying a price for liberalism's shrinking from the battle. But the question could be asked, well, um, why did that happen? And I think that the answer is probably very complicated in big pieces. I don't know what they are. But a little bit of it, I think, does come from the Vietnam era. The Democratic Party emerged out of the Vietnam era with a dovish part and a hawkish part. And the hawkish part people would call Scoop Jackson Democrats. And the dovish part won the nomination in '72 with George McGovern. And then over time, it seemed as though the dovish part basically took over the party. And it's a whole generation of people for whom the fight was Vietnam. And it was a source of pain and shame. It wasn't like people whose idea of the fight was World War II, where a noble enterprise was heroically successful in saving the world from evil. Yeah. Different experiences. I mean, maybe the wartime experiences were similar, but not even that, because of the framework within which it all happened. And so my generation, with its Vietnam experience, on the liberal side, not necessarily the whole of our age cohort or something like that, but on the liberal side, it got absorbed into an aversion to the battle. And the Democratic Party became a party of people who had an aversion to the battle. And as the Republican Party got taken over by a force of fascism, the liberal part of America was not only incapable of seeing what was rising, which I've talked about before, but were also really not in favor of a real confrontation because of a fear, because it is not nice. The not nice is a morally limited vision. There's a reason why heroes in various cultural presentations are people who do battle. St. George slays the dragon. David goes out and fights Goliath. In the world as it exists, sometimes you got to fight. And liberals have not been good enough fighters for whatever set of historical and cultural and countercultural reasons. And they fail to do what an immune system should do, as the PHAGE, the killers of the germs. We're not mobilized. And I think that one of the transformations in liberal America has to be going out there to do battle, to press the battle. And I've got something, the Denunciation Project, where I propose that somebody like Governor Newsom denounce in a very public and attention-getting way anything that Trump does that tramples on the basic norms, laws, or Constitution of the United States, something that a president is not supposed to do. Go on the attack on a regular basis, as regular as his sins will be. Okay, liberals got to make better fighters.